Good morning, garden friends. I'm standing here in front of the vast emptiness of the market garden. It's middle of November, second week of November, and it's definitely looking like the end of the season. We've been doing a lot of work here in the market garden to clean it up and get it ready for winter, and really do a lot of work to prepare it for spring so that we have less to do in the chaos of early spring. So today's video is just going to be a quick update on the status of the market garden and where we're at right now and what's left to do. And yeah, so let me take you for a little walk. I'm going to try not to point the camera into the sunlight, but unfortunately the winter angle of the sun is such that it's pretty low this morning, but I'll do my best. So when I last left you, these two rows here, 3 and 4, were single rows. My dear husband filled them up with good dirt in the middle. So now this is one big row that is going to have some sort of berries next year. Probably honeyberries, maybe some raspberries. We'll see what I come up with over the winter. But that'll be a permanent, perennial row where it will not have annual crops in it anymore. The rest of the rows, for the most part, are completely empty, as you can see. And my dear husband, yesterday, spent the day spreading old chicken poo bedding on the rows. Every winter, or actually every spring, we clean out the deep bedding from the chickens' winter hoop house and pile it up over on the side of the property and let it just compost for the year, turning it every once in a while. And then the following year, we take it and we spread it in various parts of the garden, in the yard, or the farm, I should say. And this year, we decided to put a big, thick layer of it on top of all of the garden beds. So that'll be a good dose of fertility for next year. And yeah, they all look great. And then over on the end here, I still have some work to do, and that's partly what I'm going to be doing today, is cutting down all these asparagus fronds, and also, finally, getting that little pile of asparagus cut down, dug out, and brought into the garden finally. Like I mentioned in a previous video, that little patch was a legacy patch from the previous owners, and I've stared at it for 10 years. It's time to get into this garden. I do have a little bit of weeding left to do in this perennial holding row in between this and the rhubarb row in there. Some weeding to do, and some weeding to do in the asparagus row. But beyond that, we're pretty set. So that'll be the big project today, is to get this asparagus cut down and cleaned up. The other big thing we did, you'll notice in the corners here, we have these big piles of rock bags. Lots of rock bags. You don't realize how many rock bags you have until you have to carry each one individually. We have a big pile there, big pile in that far corner over there, and one way over there. You can probably barely see it in that far corner there. Part of my war against the voles is to get everything plastic off the garden today and in as tiny a footprint as possible so that most of the garden is exposed this winter. So these rock bags sit on pallets and off the ground, and they'll stay here all winter. It actually makes the garden look quite a bit neater. But there are no rock bags, let me swing around here, no rock bags along the fence line, which will allow us to start cleaning up this fence line where voles like to hide, and yeah, and hopefully give the owls and the hawks a chance to hunt voles. The other thing we did, and let me walk over here past the tractor. You can see it on the other side of the fence here. We took every single tarp off of the garden and away from the fencing. It's piled up along the fencing here, as you can see, all the dead, exposed, dead grass. We piled them all neatly on pallets away from the garden. so they no longer sit on the ground directly. And so all the tarps will sit here all winter. They'll be fine. They're UV resistant. And hopefully the voles will move on. If I swing back here, you can see quite a bit, although it's rained since, but quite a bit of vole tunnels, some nesting materials. They had built like a whole little community under here, including spots where they went under the fence here. As you can see, the fence, there's quite a bit of tunneling under there. So yeah, this side will be the first side that we work on in the spring to clean up and clear, and probably put a gravel border along the edge here to try to keep the voles out. So now that we've got all the plastic off the garden, it's just these last few tasks left to get the garden all put to bed for the winter. So I'm going to get to work on the asparagus and get that off my list. I've finally dug out that asparagus bunch that has been outside of the garden for 10 years, and it just feels so good to finally cross that off the list. I did actually get a few good crowns. That's a really nice one. A lot of it has to be chucked, but you know, there's still a few good crowns in here that I'm gonna go ahead and plant and you know, hope that they survive. If not, well, nothing really lost. I've still got, you know, most of a row of asparagus. But there are a few crowns like this that, you know, are rotted in the middle that I'm not even gonna bother planting, but anything that looks healthy like this with good fleshy roots, you know, and no visible rot, I'm gonna put in the ground. But before I do that, unfortunately, I have to do some weeding. So I'll take care of that first and then pop these into the ground. So I'm going to plant the crowns now. I ended up with 6 out of the big pile over there. And I think that's enough for today. So planting these isn't terribly difficult. I dug a trench, probably, I don't know, 4 to 6 inches deep. You want the roots to hang down into the soil and the crown to be kind of just below the surface. So I'm gonna put this in the hole, and then I'm gonna build some dirt up underneath it so that it sits up, and then the roots can spread down around the crown like that. Oops. And the crown is just below the surface of the dirt when I fill this in. So then I just fill it in, so. All this extra dirt. Like that. So I'm just going to continue down this line and get these crowns in. I'm spacing them about, I don't know, 12 to 18 inches apart. Probably should spread them a little wider, but these are gonna be sort of stunted the first year. They're not really gonna grow very well. And I figure if these asparagus plants get a little too crowded, I can just hack out sections and spread them out that way. One thing I absolutely want to make sure I do, and I did most of this up by the wheelbarrow, up by the asparagus patch I just dug out, is to make sure I remove every little bit of grass roots that I find in this bunch, in each crown, so that I don't have to come back and weed grasses out of each of these crowns. It was in the middle of a little patch of pasture, lots of runner grass and clover. And so I want to make sure that these are as clean as I can possibly get them before I put them in this garden. I already have enough weeds to battle. I don't need to add more to the problem. Rocks. Shocking. Oh. Somebody's coming down the road to the farm, which means Susie is on alert. Well, I think I'm happy with the way these look. I'll water these in. I'm not sure if I'll get to it before winter. I hope to. But I will come back and put a layer of compost over the entire row, actually. I may also put some composted cow manure. Again, one of those, I'd like to do it before winter, but will I get to it? I'm not sure. But the asparagus is a heavy feeder, so you want to top dress it every year with good compost and occasionally some cow manure. and that helps build up the rich organic soil that it likes and give it a bunch of fertility. So I'm going to try to do that, not today, but sometime before winter. And then today I'm going to try to get the rest of this row weeded and get all the weeds out of the garden. So at least before winter I've got that done. Right now we're sort of in the what do we need to get done, like absolutely have to get done before winter, and what would we like to get done before winter battle. And we tried it really hard to get all of the really must have or it's important to get done stuff done first, and then all of the nice to do stuff done if we have time before the ground freezes or before it snows and just becomes, you know, ridiculous to work outside. So yeah, I'm gonna get cracking at the weeds and yeah, keep going. Just gonna give you an idea of the weed situation here. One thing I want to point out is over the summer I kept cutting the comfrey down, which is this massive patch here, and I threw stems down in the aisleways, and look, no weeds. I'm thinking that might be the way to go next year, is just to keep throwing the comfrey in the aisleways, and then as this rots down I can rake it into the beds. But the rest of the asparagus bed right here, unfortunately I let some of these annual weeds go to seed, so I'm going to try to pull these out without knocking all these seeds off and setting myself up for misery next year. And then this perennial problem of, I believe this is red sorrel. It is everywhere on our property. I hate this stuff. It is the bane of my existence. So I got to dig this out before it becomes too big a problem in here. As you can see, it's in here and in here. It just spreads viciously if you allow it to. So that's what I'm going to occupy myself with for the next few hours. Also, some of this runner grass has started to infiltrate back into this row, so I've got to dig this out as well. I'm going to be here a while. So I'm going to end today's video. I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse into the last few tasks that we do before we close everything up for the winter. We're in that mode now where we're just running around trying to get as much done as we can before the snow flies. Middle of November, typically we don't get snow these days until probably December, but I still have a very long list of things to do. Once I get this garden buttoned up, I can walk away and focus on other things and not have to worry that there's some undone task in here, that I can feel pretty good that this garden is in good shape for spring, and keeping my fingers crossed that we don't have the wet spring that we had this year next year. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I do appreciate that you're here, and I hope you'll come back for the next video. Take care. Bye.